Love. Love without limits. This is part 2. It's because it's love without limits. We could go on for infinity, right? But we're going to do this for now. So, love without limits. How many of us would like to experience love without limits in ourselves, in our lives, in our relationships? Yeah, pretty unanimous. Yes! All right. So, how many of us would like everyone in the world to experience this love without limits? Yes! Great. How many of us truly believe in our innermost selves that we are perfectly ready to be able and willing to share love without limits no matter what, 24 hours a day? Wow, we have some, I wasn't expecting anyone to raise their hand to that. We have some lovers in here. Yay! Okay, let's look at it this way. Let's say there's someone in our space who hurts our feelings, takes away everything that we have. How easy is it for us to love them? Is that an easy thing to do? Do we have moments when we have thoughts that are less than love? Do any of us have some feelings of resentment at times? Yeah, so we have some yeses to this. We do. So when we're even doing those momentary little blips of resentment, or do any of us do that little fear thing? Or for some of us, shall I say that big fear thing? That that thing that's like the monster on our back? The big fear thing? Do any of us do that big fear thing? When we're doing any of that, the little tiny resentments, the little fear things, the big fear things, guess what? We're not doing love without limits. Then we're not doing love without limits. So last time we talked about all of us, sometimes hurting each other's feelings and so forth, and how we need to love that soul inside of us. I'd like to remind us that we do need to look beyond our ego selves, both for ourselves and for others. Because when someone shows up in our life and they're presenting this real obstacle to what we want or need in life, someone who may be blocking us from something in our careers or with our families or with getting the income we need, and someone seems to be in the way of that with us, do we ever just even go, even that little sigh of frustration is a sigh of energy that's releasing what is not love. So in moments, we're actually vibrating with something that is not love. Hopefully we rise above that and then go, I would like to vibrate with love. So instead of seeing this situation as a situation of frustration, because that sigh is usually, I feel frustrated with whatever is going on around me, I'm going to sigh, I'm going to let it out. Hopefully then we move on. But instead of going with the frustration, we need to go with the peace of acceptance. Because when we're accepting, we open the door for unconditional love. Sometimes we struggle to accept ourselves, but sometimes we struggle to accept others. Especially when others are doing things that we find not helpful. Anybody have anybody in their life who's doing something that's not helpful lately, recently? Good, I'm not the only. I think we all have someone in our lives who's doing something that doesn't feel or look very helpful.
Somebody does help, like me. I am a nice helper.
Awesome. That's beautiful. We have a 4-year-old nice helper. It's a perfect example. Thank you. So, helping, it's a good thing. So, when someone is in our face, the first step is that acceptance. And acceptance from a higher perspective, a higher consciousness perspective, really means acceptance as a gift with peace. So we're accepting ourselves where we are right now, even if we're sighing out the frustration. And we're accepting the other person even if they're in our face and bullying, or whatever they may be. I'd like to invite us to think about this whole world out here, where some of us may be experiencing this world as competitive. Anyone experience this world as competitive?
Me.
You, wow.
Because I'm really fast and strong, and I always know everything, and I'm a nice helper too.
Very nice, thank you. So, does anyone experience it? Hopefully not on the 4-year-old level, I'm hoping not yet, but as adults, at the cutthroat level. At the cutthroat level. So, we're competing for jobs. So if somebody else gets that job, then I don't get that job, or whatever it may be, or competing for an advance, or for a raise, or whatever it might be. And we start seeing this world through this vibration of separation and me versus you. Our culture is filled with that. Well, where does it come from? Well, it dawned on me that if we're even having this little thought of, well, if I don't get this or do that or receive that, then there's not going to be enough, or I'm not going to get what I need.
I could give anybody what he needs.
Perfect. Perfect answer to the message for today. Thank you. Exactly. Because you know that we're connected and you care about our feelings. I love that. We're learning from a 4-year-old today. This is absolutely perfect. Perfect message. Thank you, Amen. So, exactly. But we adults so often have forgotten, and we're taught that we have to do everything ourselves, and that if that person has, it means we may not have, and if we don't receive, how many of us would just, let me push it a little bit, how many of us believe that if we gave away everything today, my 4-year-old example, if we just gave away everything today, we would receive the perfect flow of everything back as we need it? We have 3, maybe 4.
I know everything. I always put away toys.
I love that. I'm sure your parents love that too. So think about it, if you will, for a moment with me. We have this world where sometimes we want to complain that it's over against us and each other. And yet we too buy into that with our individual little thoughts so often. So many days we'll have these little thoughts that buy into this system. But let's think about God. So in other words, we're contributing to this ongoing energy vibration of there's not enough. And if I don't get it, someone else will. And if I gave away everything, then I wouldn't receive enough. But God really pushed me this week. I'm not saying I did a perfect job in responding, but I got the message loud and clear. God is the one who is just constantly giving. Constantly giving. That infinite love, the source knows no bounds. There's no end to God's love. God doesn't say, you get this bit, and you get that bit, and you get this little bit, and, well, and you're 4, so you probably don't need very much yet.
Yes, that's me. I'm 4 years old.
Yes! So God loves you more than this much. And God loves each and every one of us more than this much. There is no bounds. There is no boundary to God's love. There is no limit to God's love. And God gives. Think about it. Think of source beyond this universe. Perhaps creating a billion other universes. I don't know how many other universes. Maybe just this universe. Maybe many universes. There's no limit. God didn't shape this universe or make it go big bang and then say, okay, that's it. Now you guys have to pay me back. What kind of God would that be? Now you have to pay me back. No, the flow of energy from the divine into this universe is constant. That's why I love archangels. Because archangels, understood from a metaphysics perspective at least, is just the incoming flow, constant incoming flow of beautiful love and energy from God. There's no limit. So if God said, Carol, go, or Nani, Carol, go give away everything today, ideally I would trust that the flow would come. Now, it might help if a few more of us were there too, and I know we have generous souls in our midst. But think about what this world would be like if all of us were in that flow of, I can just keep giving because God is in me, I can keep giving. What if we all did that? What if we stopped vibrating with fear because we knew that we could all be doing that? What if we started inviting that kind of love without limits? I can give, I can love, it doesn't matter, you can keep hurting me, and I can forgive. I do find it interesting that Jesus said, and if the person repents, then you must forgive.
I don't hurt anybody, but I'm sick. But you know, I always do everything that somebody wants me to do.
Wow! What a perfect example! Yay! Oh, maybe we all need to go back and be 4 for a while. So, when we love and forgive, as in the children's moment, in order to get to that love without limits, that expression of forgiveness is so important. That expression of loving the other person is so important. The best example I know of this is called the Ho'oponopono. And I found this little book at Unity of Gaithersburg, Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian Forgiveness Ritual as the Key to Your Life's Fulfillment. It's by Ulrich Dupre. I encountered the Ho'oponopono a little while ago. I was introduced to it actually several years ago with a different name, and then was reminded of it a couple years ago, and have found it a really incredible tool for working through relationships. I used it to really bring some reconciliation with in a relationship with someone I worked with, and to really help smooth, bring the love in. And the really interesting thing is that when we are working on love and forgiveness, it's usually with someone that we wish they would change, right? Mm-hmm. We wish they would change and become different and treat us differently. But the Ho'oponopono is really inviting us to work on ourselves. And this is the path of self-realization, is to change ourselves. It's the only one we can change, right? So when we do the Ho'oponopono, we're actually looking deep within ourselves to change ourselves, to see what is our share in this confrontation. So the original use of this, not the original use of this, but the time that the Ho'oponopono came to the attention of people in the West was when it was used by a doctor in Hawaii to cure mentally ill prisoners. Mm-hmm. And I will share that story in a moment, but I'd just like to point out that, well, let me go ahead.
I could share every story.
There are lots of stories to share. Let me see if I can just find this gentleman's name so I pronounce it maybe correctly. Dr. Ihaleakala Hugh Len. Yes, I practiced it. I apologize if my Hawaiian's not very good. Dr. Ihaleakala Hugh Len worked in a mental hospital where there were these psychiatric patients who were actually prisoners. And what he did was, without even seeing the patients, he got their files and he asked what was there in, and remember these are criminals.
I could see every pile.
Files, yes. Piles, and files. So usually the files are in piles. Yep. Mm-hmm. So he read their files. Now remember, these were criminals, so they may have done some really horrific things. Yes. And he looked at in himself, just as I invited us to do a few moments ago, what is in me that resonates with this violence that I find outside in my world? So it's not enough for us just to lament that there's violence in the Congo or dictators in different parts of the world where people are not free. We need to ask, what is in my soul that is resonating with that energy? That's what he did with each and every patient. He prayed the Ho'oponopono with each patient, and the Ho'oponopono simply goes like this. I thought I had it marked. Well, it goes like this. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Again, I am sorry. 3 words. Please forgive me. 3 words. I love you. 3 words. Thank you. So what a beautiful way. The interesting thing is when we do it with a spiritual intention, we find that we are looking deeper within ourselves to find that which is in ourselves that needs to be shifted. So there's actually a series of steps we're invited to pursue with this. But before I share the steps, I'd like to share that the concept behind this is that ancient esoteric teaching that we are all one. And he points out that long ago humanity became aware that we have a little explorer behind the camera who would like to see what does it look like behind the camera, which is lovely. The ancient humanity was in that state of oneness originally. According to many of our human stories of our origins, we were one in that state of oneness with the divine. What happened then was that we became aware of a sense of separation. Some people call this the fall, some people call this lowering vibration. As it's explained in this book, it's when we began to sense ourselves as separate and see a sense of good and evil. So when we got to that point, we began to see ourselves as separate. The Ho'oponopono works because the original principle that is true is that we are all one. On the soul level, the spiritual vibration level, we're all one with the divine. We're all one with each other. So I cannot say that I'm scared of that person and they're doing no good and I have no responsibility for that because we're all one. Mm-hmm. So my responsibility is to look, where is there fear in me? Where is there a thought of violence or hatred in me? And where, or was there? Because sometimes, we bring some past life baggage, and if we're going to be honest, we have vibrated at all levels throughout our many lifetimes. So we have vibrated with many levels all through our lifetimes. We've not been any different than people who are doing violence today. So if we were looking at the file of a criminal, we would say, well, I probably had a lifetime like this. And so we need to look at ourselves and go, what thoughts in me need shifting? And there's a procedure for doing this that I find quite lovely and fits very well with the self-realization perspective. So it's a six-step approach. One is to join with the original source, which in Hawaiian they refer to as Akua, the being of light and the ancestors. 2 is to contemplate and accept the problem. Hala hihia. Remember I said earlier we need to accept that which
I
is.
could save any problem.
Can you really solve any problem? Well,
yes.
Wonderful.
All the time I used to do that.
That's very lovely. Probably because you're not afraid. It's much easier to solve problems when we don't go into fear. So that's lovely.
Yes, because I don't want to be afraid all the time.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you. So 2, contemplate and accept the problem. 3 is to take on 100% responsibility for the existence of the problem in your life. How hard is that for us to do? When we have small problems, maybe not so much. When we have big problems, do we really like taking 100% responsibility for that problem?
No.
Oh, we got a vehement no. Yes. But from a self-realization perspective, that's what we need to do. We need to take on 100% responsibility for the existence of problems in our lives. The 4th step is to be ready, following forgiveness, to handle things differently. The 5th step is to mutually pardon and forgive, mihi. So mutually pardon means forgive ourselves, because guess what? When we do the Ho'oponopono, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you, we will find what we've been doing. If we're open, we will find what we've been doing, what our share in the issue is. And 6 is to give thanks and offer the closing prayer, Pule Ho'opau. So one of the opening steps that we can do in that first connection with the divine is actually ask to be shown. Actually ask to be shown what is in me. So we're actually asking God to show us, to help us delve inside us, to see the truth inside us of wherever our fear is, or wherever that which is not love in us is. Because if we'd like love without limits, we have to work at finding those spots inside ourselves and healing those spots inside ourselves before we can be receiving love without limits, and certainly before we can be sharing love without limits with others. So I invite each of us to think of just one person with whom we need to practice the Ho'oponopono. I am sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I decided to share this lesson in part because I have a friend who I would listen to her and I think, she's not a client, so I can't, treat her like a client, And I was like, what can I do? And then it came to me to share the Ho'oponopono. And her whole life just transformed because she started using it with some difficult relationships. And now when I listen to her, I hear a much more self-responsible and to some degree happier person. And I'm like, yes! And as a matter of fact, with this book, and I will give it credit again, Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian Forgiveness Ritual as the Key to Your Life's Fulfillment by Ulrich Dupre, it says we can transform everything in our lives. We can transform who we are, we can transform our relationships, we can transform our families, we can transform our work relationships, we can transform all the problems in our lives by practicing the Ho'oponopono. So say...
I have my water gun.
Do you?
Yep.
Is it here?
No, it's at home.
Okay. Do you want to go find one of the other toys that we do have here and maybe play with that?
Yes.
Yes? We don't have to, but you could. Because I don't have a water gun here though. Maybe summertime we could have a water
Well,
gun.
I will sell you it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Only if you come back here.
So, in terms of solving problems, to bring that love without limits, one of the things we can do is just to identify a problem that we're having difficulty accepting. If we're labeling it a problem instead of an opportunity, we're probably having difficulty accepting the situation is in our lives. So we can practice the Ho'oponopono by identifying this is the issue, and then asking, what is my share in it? What is my share in it? And I started practicing that last night with one of the issues in my life, and I was like, oh, I see. There are some thoughts in my head that resonate with creating this problem. Oh, isn't that marvelous? So then I get to forgive myself and love myself, and I get to forgive and love the rest of the world and people involved with this issue, not a problem, this opportunity in my life. And I can see how this prayer can transform us and transform our lives. What a gift! This is one of the most transformative tools in the universe for creating love without limits. I always want to say first, I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you.